What's the fastest you've ever gone from caring about someone to straight up loathing them? Had a really great friend in high school. He was cool, but he's always be trying to sell stuff to people in the hallways, like video games or pocket knives or sunglasses. After over a year of being friends with him, he came over to my house to hang out, and when he left a bunch of my favorite video games were missing. I realized what was happening, and I had plans on forgiving him if he just fessed up and apologized. Instead he got super defensive and angry, and I instantly lost any respect I had for the guy. I let one of my friends borrow some PS4 games and a controller. The 3 games were $60 each and the controller was $65. He only asked to borrow them for a few days, as he only had access to a PS4 for that time. A few weeks go by, and I've forgotten about the games. But when I did finally ask, he just never replied. 2 years later, one of our mutual friends informed me that he sold them for weed money. Gave my roommate an envelope with a money order for bills in it to drop in the mail. He got arrested. While looking for some of his documents to take to him, I found the opened, empty envelope in his closet. Peace out. Similar story. 2 friends were renting a place. One moved out, and I moved in and took over their half. After a while, my friend decides he's gonna move to out of state. Okay, fine. I decide to just move back home for a bit. He packs up and leaves town in like a day. My friend that I took over for and I were still there clearing out some things they had left behind. The landlord shows up looking for now out of town dude wondering where the last 2 months rent are. Guy was just taking my money and pocketing it and then skipped town. Didn't even tell the landlord he was leaving. Thankfully the landlord forgave it all. When my best friend of 10 years slept with my boyfriend of 2 years, I was so crushed, but to be honest was more angry with the friend. I truly did believe that I was deeply in love with the boyfriend, but he was kind of a shithead to begin with. I saw my friend as a sister and her betrayal left longer lasting impact and hurt way more. I hated her in a violent way for a very long time. Fast forward 11 years and now I'm to a point where I have forgiven her and wish her well, but would never let her back into my life again. This must happen often. Something similar happened to me. Best friend of over 10 years slept with my boyfriend the moment we broke up. She did it back because, and he did it to get back at me. I worked for my stepmom with the intent that I would take over the business when she retired in a few years. I took more than a 50% pay cut and left my career of 10 years of managing and leading organizations to come work for her. Those few years came and went with her unable to even talk about a timeline for retirement. I spent years trying to fix processes and procedures around the office to make her life easier and to make the general workflow easier for all employees, but she was completely resistant to any change from the status quo, while simultaneously always complaining about how busy she was and how we just didn't have any good processes in place. I finally confronted her about her retirement timeline and putting it in writing that I would be her succession plan. She balked at even putting together a plan for her retirement. I let her know that I really couldn't hang around if there weren't any prospects for advancement or pay increases. My wife secured a job in a new town and I gave my stepmom a 6-month notice that we would be moving. I explained that I would be more than willing to help hire and train my replacement and finish formalizing all of the procedures I had developed in my time there. She fired me the next business day. Fuck that bitch. My best friend who I considered a brother was working for me. I called him to talk about the next job, construction, and he informed me that he had started his own company and taken my other full-time employee with him, who was working with me that day. Yeah, needless to say, that one stung for a bit. We are cordial now, but it will never be the same after that. It's been 3 years. I asked the guy who owned the company I worked for if I could hire my half-brother, who is about 15 years older than me. Didn't know my brother well, but he ends up being the most lazy pose employee I have ever worked with. One night I told him if he didn't start pulling his weight I'd fire him. Monday I get a call to the owner's office and I'm fired after 16 years on the job. My brother had been stealing and used the evidence of his crime to frame me. Family, am I right? My mother was an alcoholic growing up. I used to take her side in all the fights she had with my dad. When I was at an older age I realized she was using my dad. She had no job and my dad, who was 64, was working his ass off to pay for my sister, me and my parents. Then my dad said we didn't have enough money for something, and basically my mum said so. We are poor. My parents later split up and she found another boyfriend almost instantly. She still didn't have a job. So I figured out that she used my dad, then was using her boyfriend. Yeah, it was messed up. Edit. Thank you everyone for all the love and support. I hope you get through your sad times too. Friend at a bar tells some people we just met how her mother died. Later in the night I express my sympathy. Now she's without parents. She told me hush hush a few years prior about how father had passed. Wait, did I tell you back then my dad died? I thought I told you it was my mum. No, both my parents are still alive. When we were in uni I just read in a book telling people a parent has died isn't good way to get sympathy. Haha. My childhood friend, he lived pretty close to me and seemed like a nice dude until he stole my golden eye and moved to Minnesota. Fuck you, Derek. Found out this girl I was getting close to had been lying about her ex being a deadbeat dad, and well, her ex, he wasn't just still in the picture, they lived together. I should have guessed after the third or fourth time she made an excuse to not go to her place. Never ended something so quick. Talking to my then GF about her cheating on me, explaining I couldn't ever possibly trust her again, and she replied, but do you really need to trust me? Clearly had different ideas on what's required for a healthy relationship. Edit. For context, relationship was 6 years long. We had been talking about marriage. We owned a dog together. This was the second instance of cheating. This conversation was what pushed me over the edge into the territory of self-respect. Broke up with her the next day. Much happier since. My, at the time, girlfriend had a little sister. She was graduating from college, and her college was not close by. It was a few states away and at least a 5-hour drive. We both loved the sister, but we weren't going to make it to her graduation. We couldn't afford a hotel for the weekend, and we couldn't take off from work to get there on time. She freaked out on us. It was the biggest tantrum I've seen an adult make. My GF and I both assumed it wasn't that big of a deal, but seeing how much her sister freaked out, we re-evaluated the situation. So, we packed up quickly and drove through the night to get there. She told us we could sleep in her apartment that night, but that we'd need to get a hotel the following night. That was fine. We found something online for like $100 a night. We got to her place in record time. It was not even midnight. We felt like heroes for making up so quickly. We get to her apartment, and she won't let us in. She says she's already in bed, and we should have gotten there earlier if we wanted to take her up on her offer. So, we are both exhausted, and we have nowhere to stay. I wanted to just turn around and go back home, but my GF was a better person than me. Luckily we had other friends in the city, and one was nice enough to give us their couches for the night. It's been like 15 years, and I assumed the sister was getting one last lay with a college hookup, because I could not imagine any other scenario where she couldn't simply walk down 2 flights of stairs to open the door for us. I ended up marrying the GF, and still bring up this situation anytime she gets in a fight with her sister. It's usually I can't believe how selfish my sister is being, and I'd go, you can't. Remember that time we drove to her college grab and she cuts me off? Of course she also remembers it. My mother fought cancer for 5 years. My father let my sister and I do 95% of the work/caregiving, and after her death expected us to step into her place and take care of him. The man I used to love and respect is gone, and I can't stand to be around him anymore. When he straight up denied my existence in front of his friends. I had a lunch shift in high school where I knew absolutely no one but my brother. He absolutely denied all knowledge of who I was, even after the people he was with knew I was his brother. It was super fucking awkward. Eventually I made friends with some classmates and sat with them. My brother did this too. First day at a new secondary school. We were the first intake of girls. My briefcase. I was a cool kid and 12, so give me a break. Lock broke. The only person I knew was my brother. Went to discreetly find him to help me. He pretended he had no idea who I was. One of his friends who I also knew was the one who helped me. We don't talk much. Same here. My brother forbade me to talk to him outside of the house and lifted me by my throat and threatened to smash in my face if I disobeyed. He is 2 years older and quite large. I'm a girl. He would force me into the footwell if we were in a car together. We also don't talk much. Sorry you didn't have better siblings. 1 year friendship with this girl. I invited her over to my new apartment. She came over and wanted to gossip about her coworkers. When she paused, I tried to add into the conversation, make a joke, give reassurance, add a comment, etc. But she would immediately raise her voice and start talking over me. I kept getting angrier every time it happened until I was actually loathing her internally. She was so self-absorbed that she didn't notice I went from smiling and engaged to frowning while staring off into space. After 2+ hours of not being allowed to talk, I made up an excuse to kick her out of the apartment and then vowed to never see her again. Wow, you made it to the end? Nice job. Like and subscribe to see more edit videos. Have a nice day.